Good afternoon. I'm Sentinel, your streaming host for RevFoXX this afternoon, covering the San Francisco, California stop of Kellie-Jay Keene's Speaker's Corner tour in the U.S. Keene, also known as Posey Parker, is one of the most well-known modern voices in support of single-sex spaces, maintaining boundaries, and promoting independent critical thought about gender ideology, actions, and laws affecting women and children. Originally named Yerba Buena with a colony of about 200 people in 1846, the discovery of gold nuggets in 1848 at the American River prompted gold fever. By 1849, the population exploded to more than 40,000 and set the course to define not only San Francisco, but California as a whole. San Francisco is flush with iconic structures, institutions, and events. From Alcatraz and the Golden Gate Bridge, Stanford and Berkeley, the oldest Asian districts in the U.S., to the Transatlantic Railway in Silicon Valley. There's no mystery as to why San Francisco is among the most traveled cities in the world. Today, we join the group standing and speaking alongside Posey, helping broadcast the growing number of concerned voices to global audience on topics such as child predation, political posturing, academic integrity, gender ideology, and medical profiteering. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 415, home of Beat and Rebellion.
Guys, I just want you to know this is live. I'm here because just need a Disney. How you doing? I understand it. It's very challenging. We have outdoor space. I don't have to go far away from it. I definitely want to get in the court. Oh, that's great. But you're only out in Gary. She's also out in the Richmond. So we'll do one else. Get it. You know, I get to get in there and say. Careful. Well, hey, Renee. Yep. Renee. Anyway, if you see the dark chain link. Yeah, I heard of that. How did it go? Oh, nice. There we go. Nice. Yeah, you think it's safe?
Hello. Right, gonna go live.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear that?
Yes.
Okay. Right, this is a Well, hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon. We are here at the burlesque strip show for kids. Oh no, it's drag queen story, pumpkin carving time. Here in San Francisco, the aptly named Scott Wiener is hosting a Wiener Fest of a drag show for kids, and weirdly, people are coming. People have actually brought their children. Down the street, I believe, is burlesque for babies, and we have 5-year-old strip shows. So adult sexuality mixing with kids is one of the main kind of components of this absolute wacko, crazy movement called transgenderism. And what you've got is mutilating kids' bodies, responsible adults bringing their children to adult sex act kind of shows. And I don't mean there's literally a sexualized act. I mean, the whole bloody thing is about erasing children's boundaries between adults and children's bodies and between children and adult sexuality. And that's what this is. And it's so weird that parents are okay. Parents are okay with it, because if it was a woman coming as a kind of a parody of a woman, if it was a woman as a sexualized version of herself, they wouldn't be here. And so it's really just this pernicious ideology. I keep saying it, I'm going to say it again. Fascism comes as your friend, and be kind. And that's kind of what's going on here. It's weird. It's weird that there's a state senator promoting adult sexuality to children, and parents have come along. I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. There are literally people thinking it's a great act of diversity and inclusion to bring their children to something promoted by this man who's erased women's rights. He's pushed through SB 132. He's put male rapists in women's prisons. He's promoting the idea that if you can't get surgery in your state for your kid, you can come and have them sterilized in California. So that's why we're here in San Francisco. This is a women's free speech event. So what we do say to men who want to speak is women first. It may well be the only time that that's ever happened, but it is women first. We can't even say who we are anymore. We can't even say what we are anymore. And in California, I have no idea why this is so Scottish about the whole thing, but it really does seem to promote men's sexual rights above everything else. And I mean everything else. So you come and talk. You can talk for however long you want, whatever you want to say. I believe this is a country that apparently pretends to have free speech. Scott Wiener's office has just told us they don't like TERFs. So that's great. There's a man walking a couple of cats. Anyway, okay, so whoever would like to talk, if you'd like to say who you are, why you're here, that would be great. If you don't have to, anything you say is fine by me. So welcome, everybody. Hello. Can you hear me? Yes. So my name is Leah Keith, and I'm the founder. More close. Oh, there you go. My name is Leah Keith, and I'm the founder of Wolf. Woo! Wolf is the group that is suing the state of California in federal court on behalf of women in prison. And that's because California, in all its wisdom, decided that men in prison could declare themselves women and get transferred to the women's prison. This men have done. Hundreds of them have decided they are women and they want in. Now, I want you to imagine being locked in a 10 by 10 cell, 8 women per room. The beds are 4 feet apart. You have a shared toilet and an open shower. You have no privacy, and you are locked in. And now a man is put in your cell. What we know about men pretending to be women is that they retain male patterns of criminality. In other words, they can change their clothes, nothing else changes. The same violent crimes, the same sexual crimes. What we know about men in prison who are pretending to be women, as many as half of them are sexual offenders. Half. Yeah. And some of these men get put in your 10 by 10 cell. Open shower, no privacy, and the door is locked. Do I need to tell you that the women are living in terror? That these men wasted no time in threatening and assaulting women? That the women are sleeping in shifts because they're so terrified? One woman called it a nightmare's worst nightmare. There's a woman at CCWF whose children were murdered by a man who's now pretending that he is a woman. He's been transferred to CCWF. She is now in the same prison as the man who murdered her children. The worst men in the world are now being set loose on the most marginalized women.
The dignity and safety of the most vulnerable women have been weighed against the feelings of sexual predators. The feelings of those men have won. Oh, be kind, they said. Use the pronouns, they said. What does it cost you, they said. And here we are. I drove 8 hours to be here today. Yeah, California is a big state, but I wanted to say two things. The first is to the women right now locked up with these wretched men. We hear you, we weep for you, and we will never stop fighting for you. That's right. I know you can't hear me, but you know who can? Senator Scott Wiener, the man responsible for this nightmare, and he's right over there. Scott, I have one thing to say to you, and that's shame on you. Women are in cages with rapists. Your sadism is unspeakable. Do women even exist for you? Or are we really just a costume that men can choose to wear? Well, I'm not a costume. I'm an adult human female, and I'm here for my sisters and my freedom, and I'm not leaving until it's done.
Thank you very much. Just to remind everyone, if you're tuning in on the live stream behind us, the Senator, Scott Wiener, responsible for hell on earth that is California, when it comes to women's rights. I'm pretty sure it's got lovely weather. It's not so great to be a woman or a child in this state. He's hosting I think it's called a grooming session. Pumpkin carving session, which is to groom children into adult sexuality via drag. And some people will think that sounds a little hyperbole, but it's genuinely true that maybe he's doing it because he's stupid and incompetent, or maybe he's doing it because he has really bad intentions. But there are people that are gleeful with bad intentions that children are being groomed into adult sexuality via drag. So it doesn't really matter what his intentions are, because what he's doing is he's gifting children to some people with bad intentions. And that's what he's doing with this woman face wearing parody sexualized misogyny that is drag. And that's what he's doing when he welcomes children from all over the country to have life-altering surgeries and hormones. So that's why we're here. Scott Wiener, with this grooming carving session. Who else would like to talk? Yes. Really close if you can.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, keep it up.
All right. So, in honor of Kellie-Jay's upcoming visit with Kamala Harris in Seattle, I'll introduce myself in the style of our first female vice president. Who's actually a woman. My name is Allie Snyder. I am a woman. I am a mother. I have no pronouns because I refuse to tell other people how to speak about me. I am wearing some of the finest fashion ever created to protect the rights of women and children. I am here today in San Francisco, in the formerly great state of California, and I aim to turf it up. I want to start my turf talk on the subject of using preferred pronouns. Seems like such a small thing at first, an easy way to show basic respect to a fellow human struggling with mental distress. But the reality is the term preferred pronouns is a massive misnomer. A more accurate term would be demanded pronouns, because compliance in this compelled speech is mandatory and not at all up to individual preference. When we respect someone's pronouns, the demands being made of us are incredibly serious and lead to some very dark places. To participate in this practice is to accept a new cult-like faith based on feelings, outdated stereotypes, delusions, dysphoria, and often homophobia. These demands to respect and participate in gender ideology are being leveled at our children. On the first day of school this year, my 10 and 12-year-old sons were asked by 3 separate teachers for their preferred pronouns on getting to know you questionnaires. In my subsequent meetings with their principals and teachers, I made it clear that this question is unacceptable at a public school. It is unacceptable because it forces our children to wonder if they have such a thing as a gender identity. At the very least, this question confuses them and makes them ask themselves if their bodies might be wrong. In too many instances, it leads them down a path to barbaric medical experimentation and irreversible harm. I warned these educators that by promoting this new ideology, generations of future homosexuals and other so-called gender non-conforming children are being thrown on a medical assembly line where they are being stunted, sterilized, and surgically altered, rendered medical patients for life. I hope I planted a seed of curiosity in these meetings, but unfortunately, at least in the case of my son's health teacher, my warnings seemed to fall on deaf ears. This woman looked me straight in the eye and told me being a woman is a feeling. A true believer committed to teaching her students California's newly mandated family life curriculum, where children learn all about identities like agender, genderqueer, pangender, and many more that are so real and valid, she couldn't even remember what they were during the meeting. Good thing she's teaching it, right? Unsurprisingly, my son is no longer in this handmaiden's class. But that won't save the other kids from her and her fellow gender cult leaders throughout our education system, hell-bent on robbing our children's innocence and warping their ability to understand reality. So, as we see these demanded pronouns appear more and more often on surveys, online profiles, email signatures, and employee name badges, we must resist regardless of the consequences. I lost my job because when I shared my concerns regarding gender ideology, someone felt hurt, sad, and uncomfortable. I refused to stay silent on the subject, so I was let go. I don't blame my former employer, though. They have the livelihoods of thousands of people hinging on their compliance with California employment law. Instead, I blame corrupt policymakers like Scott Wiener and Governor Gavin Newsom, who so smugly sign away our First Amendment rights to freedom of and from religion. They sign away women's rights to single-sex spaces based on biological sex. And they sign away the future health and well-being of our children. Thanks to these policymakers, the state now says a certain type of person's feelings trump objective reality. If their feelings are hurt or offended or even questioned by discussing the harms and human rights violations that follow from the promotion of gender ideology, the offending party must be penalized with extreme prejudice. Of course, there is no such consideration for us women who do not want to share our restroom with a volatile man who told a fellow coworker the moment he knew he was a woman was when he, and I quote, was getting effed in the ass. Sorry, there's kids behind me. I care about their boundaries.
Bravo.
You can hear what he actually said. You can figure it out. When he was getting, by lady boys in Korea.
So sorry. My screen was just totally.
Hold that knob.
Yeah.
Filibuster. Am I back?
Wait.
Statue.
I just need to. Such a meeting.
No, you're not. You're a chirping queen. Don't talk about yourself that way.
We love you.
It was still called So Kamala Harris is joining us in
You're killing it. Okay.
I like to feel this is part of the charm.
It is part of the charm.
Definitely part of the charm.
And all the repeated comments going, can you just sort out your text?
That's in the magic of post-production.
Well, I was like, what did parents are taking their kids to this freak show? In out of San Francisco. You look great. I got you. It says in out. Where'd it go?
Can you all hear me? Regardless of how many of us women were targeted by sexual predators in our past, our feelings of violation and loss of security mean nothing to this state. Instead, we women face consequences for even speaking our concerns out loud, because the state now considers gender identity a protected characteristic far more important than our biological sex. In closing, I empathize with the desire to respect somebody's pronouns. I used to do it too, because I always strive to be kind and respectful to my fellow human beings. But I know better now. I know using preferred pronouns is really submitting to the demands of a dangerous ideology. It is no respectful act. We must remember it is never kind to lie to children and mentally ill, or affirm that their bodies are wrong and need altering. There is no kindness in demanding women and girls open the doors to our single-sex spaces for predators, convicted rapists, and pedophiles who want to gain access to the prey of their choice when we are most vulnerable. We must hold the line on our language, our children's futures, our freedom, and indeed our very understanding of reality itself begins and ends with our language. So keep standing up, keep speaking out, and do not submit to dangerous demands.
Thank you. I'm just having a bit of a tech issue.
Are you out of storage?
No, it's not that. Okay, I think it's now working. Can I just say, the irony of a man over there dressed as a witch when we're all cast as witches, the irony is not lost on me that today, by invitation, there is a man dressed as a witch. Us women, for speaking out throughout history, were treated as witches and some killed. And now you have men LARPing as us, dressed as witches, while we're turfed out on the street, turf being the operative, turfed out on the street so that these men in woman face can get near to our kids. Yeah, so he can feel safe. So men who parade their kink and their fetish can be safe whilst dressed as witches. It's just too perfect. Whilst they lure children with their pumpkin grooming, carving. Anyway, yeah, Scott, well, I don't know if he's here. I can't sense it. But I feel that there will be a disturbance in the force when he arrives. I feel that we'll all need to we'll all just instinctively start watching the children just to make sure they're okay. Who else would like to speak? Come on. Yes. I get a little loud though. You could be loud. We quite like loud. We like loud.
Okay. So my name is Jody, and I'm that rarity. I'm a local. I was born and raised here. Yeah, so I have 2 points to make really quickly. First of all, as we all know, transing kids, very bad, very evil. And obviously, as far as I can see, it's all about, getting the gay out with a little bit of Munchausen's proxy and some eugenics thrown in as far as I'm concerned. Now, there is a group of children we forget about who are being affected by this. I have I'll say older relatives, because if I call her elderly, I'll be in trouble, that I help sometimes, and I was out in the front yard doing some work for her when her local neighborhood ATP and his under 6-year-old daughter came walking up. And I learned a couple of things. First of all, you can carry on a conversation without ever using pronouns or a proper name. And second of all, when the child came up, first she wanted to help me, and then she wanted to play. And her idea of play, lots of kids, I've never seen this before, she wanted to do a scratch fight like this, and then pretend cry afterwards for whoever lost. And all I thought was, this is some perv guy's viewpoint of a woman's cat fight. And to get her away one time when he came to see the get he said, well, you know, your hair is getting messy. So why don't we go watch hair videos and I'll do it while we watch them. And I'm like, dude, no, you're just, I don't know, grooming, but training. You're involving her in your fantasy, very simply, your fantasy about what it's like to be a girl. Trust me, that's not what it's like. I can explain it to you if you want it. But it's just wrong. So remember, it's not just the kids who are being trans who are hurt. It's the kids who are being raised by parents who think they're another sex or gender, who are being hurt also, because they're being trained and they're going to need a lot of help when they grow up.
We'll be here for them.
There you go. My second point was actually for the people that call the Trolla laws. I don't like saying TRA. I just call them La because, well, that's where they live, even though it's not LA. And I want them to understand, dudes, you're not women. You'll never be able to women. But the only argument I hear from them is that they're worried about trans rights being human rights. Well, here's a clue. I don't know anybody who disagrees with that. They're human beings, so they can have the same basic rights as any other human being. But there is one thing they can't have, and trans can't have women's rights. Yeah. We've been fighting a long time for this. I mean, let's face it, Abigail Adams wrote her husband not to forget the women when they did the Constitution. So, of course, they probably did. Took us almost 150 years to get the vote, let alone Title IX 50 years later. And, of course, the ERA still hasn't passed. These are ours. They have been fought for. They have been a lot of hassle. People gone to jail. People died for our rights. They're not yours. Just hands off. And if you don't understand basic biology from high school, if you didn't pass, let me explain it to you. There's a very famous T-shirt out there that explains what a woman is. There's 3 things you need to be a woman. You need to be human. Okay, we already decided you're humans. That's okay. Then you have to be an adult. I'm not saying maturity. I'm just saying old enough to vote and whatever you want to do. That's fine. I'll give you being an adult. But the final thing, you got to be female. And you are and never will be female. So please learn that. Which means stay out of women's prisons. Stay out of women's shelters. Stay out of women's rooms. Stay out of anything that says women on it. If it says women or it says female on it, you are not invited. It's that simple. Yeah. For God's sake, stay out of anything that has children in it. Because then you won't be a TRA, you'll just be a perv. And if you can't understand that, read the damn shirt. Women's spaces are female places, and you don't qualify.
To the people at home, I'm so sorry. Restream stopped working, which means it's only now being streamed on YouTube. I might get you to do your speech again, if that's all right. Yours works, Leah. Oh, great. I love having these tech issues. For anybody now joining on a stream that's actually working, we're here at Scott Wiener's pumpkin grooming carving session. There's police protecting men wearing women face dressed as witches. And there are the actual witches who have to be on the public street because Scott Wiener's team, who don't like turfs, we've been told, I hope that's on my Twitter. Scott Wiener's team, who don't like turfs, said that the park that they've rented, I don't know who for, but apparently we don't count as people that are allowed to be in the park. So I don't know whether they've got a permit that excludes vaginas or people that don't go along with grooming kids, but whatever is on that permit means we can't be inside the park. So I wonder legally how they get to say that we're not allowed to be in the park. That would be quite an interesting thing to find out. So what you've got behind me is some pumpkins. You've got some violating of children and their boundaries. You've got parents going along with the be nice men in women face. Couple of giant men dressed as women. And you've got kids doing pumpkin carving by Scott Wiener. This is his event because what is most important about Halloween is affirming men's identities in dresses, not actually any of the huge Halloween celebrations that go on in America anyway. But I suppose if Halloween is all about horror and terrifying things, then a drag queen is absolutely the right thing to do with kids, because there's nothing more horrifying than men dressed as women pretending to be parodies, sexualized versions and caricatures of what a man's idea of a woman is, which if I look at the women here, is absolutely nothing to do with what we women are. Anyway, so this is a free speech event. It's just so, I'm just going to say to the people at home, it feels really palpably, tangibly horrible to watch all the parents kind of, it's like some dystopian, weird American movie where any minute now there's going to be like a bloody severed rabbit's head or something in an Easter egg hunt. It's just really weird that all these parents are gleefully taking their kids along to an adult act. Like I said, there are some burlesque shows down the road for babies, and there's stripping for kids. That's another one of Scott Wiener's promotional events. So if you want to take your child to a sexualized adult content event, this is it. And there's lots of parents doing it, and I don't really get why anybody would be supportive. These people behind us here probably agree that male rapists should be in women's prisons. They're absolutely okay with mutilating kids' bodies and sterilizing children. In fact, they're not just happy about it, they're gleeful. They're celebrating it. They think that they are on the right side of history to mutilate and sterilize children's bodies. It's just so demented, I can't tell you. Right, would somebody else like to talk? Female socialization in action.
The grown-ups are here. The real grown-ups are here. I'm a registered Democrat in California, and I'm a mother. I've been asked many times, why do I care about children transitioning? My answer is this: why don't you care? Why don't you care? Children are being experimented on. Children that are experiencing gender dysphoria are currently not getting appropriate mental health services. Instead, professionals are affirming their delusion and sending them down a path of sterilization and lifelong medicalization by prescribing puberty blockers, off-label, cross-sex hormones, and irreversible surgeries. During an already emotionally confusing time, puberty. The cure for puberty, for this confusion, is to experience puberty and to get to the other side of it, not to prevent it. What happened to the phrase, it gets better? Sorry, I'm old school. I wrote it down. Puberty. That'd be great. Puberty is a difficult time for all teenagers, and their turmoil manifests and is expressed differently for each of them. Gender dysphoria is a mental illness and should be treated by mental health professionals, not endocrinologists, not surgeons. I wonder how a parent of a child who cuts themselves would feel if their pediatrician told them the best course of treatment is to take their child to a surgeon to do a more precise job cutting their child's flesh. That would be considered physician-assisted self-harm. I wonder how a parent of an anorexic child would feel if their pediatrician recommended diet pills, liposuction, and instructed them to refer to their child as obese, since that's how the child feels inside. That would be considered physician-assisted self-harm. But what about the kids who say they'll commit suicide if they don't transition? Making irreversible medical decisions that will affect the child's life should not be made in such a heightened state of duress, but rather at a time in their lives when their brain is fully developed, which we know is about 24, 25. A clear mind is needed, not an obsessed, destructive one. There are many detransitioners speaking out these days. Listen to the detransitioners. There are so many. There's a Reddit group for detransitioners, and currently there's about 40,000 members. The number is going to continue to grow. The detransitioners have much to warn us about the harms of transition. The most common things I hear them say are, I got little to no pushback. No one stopped me. I had one visit with the gender specialist and left with a prescription for puberty blockers. This is the most horrifying. I amputated my breast at 14, 15, 16, 17, and now I'm in my 20s, and I'll never get them back. Boys that amputated their penises at 18, 19 say they thought they would have an actual functional vagina. Of course they can't. It's false hope. Young lives damaged, all because we as a society don't have the courage to say no. No, we will not allow the medical industry to experiment on our children. No, we will not allow medical professionals to lie to our children. They are being experimented on. Let's let them grow up with healthy, intact bodies. Let's be the grown-ups these kids need.
Oh, the penis is here. What? Oh, he's alive? Oh my God. It's really great that the wiener sign keeps drooping. It's particularly humorous for me. I think we ought to. There's a little bit of me that feels just for a moment we should just do this. To Scott Wiener, we know that you like putting male rapists into women's prisons. I'm really astounded that anyone thinks that that's okay to put men into women's prisons, but this guy just put his thumb down in the green. I think he enjoys the idea of women getting raped in women's prisons. Do you? Do you? Yes, you do. Also, these people think transitioning kids is okay. They work for a man that actively promotes the sterilization and mutilation of children's bodies. I don't know how much you're getting paid, but your soul can't be worth that much. Okay, so I think it's really important that parents understand that this is part of a nation of grooming when it comes to, hello, hi. When it comes to the grooming of kids into adult sexuality, when it comes to the grooming of children into no longer being able to name the things they see in front of them as true, is a mass gaslighting of children and people throughout the United States of America, if not the globe. It's not just the children that gets gaslit into thinking that they genuinely can change sex. It's all the children around that have to pretend they don't see a boy when they're actually talking to a boy. They have to pretend they see a girl. I think this is going to be an overwhelming hangover when those children finally realize they were created and born into a world that wasn't actually real. I think the mental health issues are going to be profound because it doesn't really matter how you feel about God, and I'm a gold star atheist. It doesn't matter how you feel about those things. There are fundamental truths and there are faiths. And this is being sold as a fundamental truth and not a faith. At least religions have the honesty to say that this is something they believe, not something that is actually true for everybody. And they don't try and force it on you, even if they knock on your door with a Bible. But this is actually saying, if you don't believe, if you don't say that women have penises, then you actually can be punished by the force of a gun through the state, through losing your job, through being made homeless, from losing your friends, having your kids taken away from you. And that's what this senator actually promotes. And people that come here with their kids, what the fuck are you doing? Hello. Absolutely, it's just nuts. Look, there is a man over there dressed as a witch, and the witches are actually on the side street. So, anyway, if any of you witches would like to talk, please step forward. Yes. Come, stand here.
Hello,
Renee.
my
is
name
that
is
live?
Renee Marcel, and I am a TERF.
Yeah.
A year ago, I didn't know what a TERF was. When I found out what a TERF was, it made me very, very sad that there had to be such a thing. I have been a feminist since 1975. I used to teach women's studies at the University of Washington.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And I was so proud of it. And you know, what stood true then continues to stand true to this day. And that is that our language has been taken away from us. The first day of class in the women's studies class at the University of Washington, I had all of the women announce, well, what are all of the negative terms that you can describe a woman with? And what are all of the negative terms used to describe a male? We came up with over 100 for women. Slut, cunt, you know what they are, bitch. Absolutely disgusting language. There were only 30 words to describe males. Today, that continues to hold true. But what really saddens me is how our language is being taken away from us even more. I did not think that I would have to be in this fight at this time of my life. And I can tell you categorically that I am very grateful, sadly, to be on the back end of my life because I cannot stand what is happening to our children.
Yes.
At 50 years old, I walked in the Women's March in Washington, D.C. I was pregnant to here, and I walked for pro-choice, and I chose to have a child. That boy turned out to be autistic, and now he's joined the trans train.
Oh.
Boo. I also had a daughter, and that daughter is 15 now. A year ago, she was 13 years old when she came home from her first day of high school in August of 2021. When she came home, her name had changed from Sunmaya to Vinny. She was no longer a she or a her. She was a he or a him, which broke my heart. But being the lawyer that I am, I wrote a cease and desist letter to the school. Right? Now, how many of you think that that was effective? No, it was not. So I sent a second cease and desist letter. Do not refer to my child as Vinny. Do not refer to my daughter as a he, him. To date, I am getting letters from the school, transcripts from the school, describing my daughter as a he and describing her as Vinny, and I have absolutely no say. And it is not okay. Now, I have been a card carrying Democrat since 1971. And you know what? I gave up my card carrying creds. I gave those up because that party no longer represents me.
Woo.
Sadly, the left, which I always thought I was a part of, has also left me. My former friends are dismissive when I tell them that at 450 Sutter Street in San Francisco, there is a doctor who has performed over 2,500 double mastectomies on girls under the age of 18.
Oh.
And what did they say to me? I was told by a former Democratic pal of mine that that was a mere right-wing talking point. The truth became a right-wing talking point, and I have been dismissed by all my former friends. I have been dismissed. I am alone until I found you. And thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh God, it's far-reaching, isn't it? It's fine. I'll do it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Right, who else would like to speak? Yes. You've got to hold it nice and close.
Hello, my name is Cynthia, and I am a lifelong liberal, and I am a Democrat still. This is a shout out to Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, who finally understands that men who self-identify as female are not women. He just recently announced that trans-identifying males have to register for selective service. And yet at the same time, our president thinks that when they self-identify into women's prisons, into women's spaces, into women's restrooms, that's a-okay. That is crazy. So why are they males when they're in the army? And why are they female when they're included in prison cells, when they're included in women's spaces? Explain that to us, President Biden. Explain that to us, Senator Weiner. Explain that to us, Assemblyman Phil Teen. We want to know. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much. Good point, well made. I saw, is it Rachel Levine talking about really promoting a bit more the whole sterilization of children, and
They need to be
I just want to say to he must be called Dave. I don't know what his real name is. Chad, Dave. I don't know. Levine. Richard. Is it Levine or Levine?
Sometimes
Dick Levine. Dick Levine. To Dick Levine. Let me just say, we know that you want to use the bodies of children to defend yourself against accusations of being a fetishist. We know that's what you're all doing. And you are perfect to help peak trans so many more Americans. So in a funny way, I wonder if you're just all being really badly trolled by, I think him and Dylan have sort of linked up together to peak trans the entire United States. Because Rachel Dick, whatever his name is, couldn't be more of a perfect example of a man wearing woman face if we tried. I think he's even better than Caitlyn Jenner. So that was tricky. Kat, would you like to speak?
Hello everyone, my name is Kat. I'm so excited to be here. I'll get into it in a moment, but Kellie-Jay really changed my life, the trajectory of my life anyway, surrounding my transition. I'm a detransitioner, so I once identified as a man. I began taking testosterone to masculinize my body in what I thought was becoming matched with my male gender identity. And I started believing this ideology at age 13. I was very vulnerable. I had an eating disorder. I had ADHD and possibly undiagnosed autism. And I felt very uncomfortable in my body. And I stumbled across an online forum for FTM trans people. And this was an easily accessible website. And so children could easily access this. And as soon as I read about gender dysphoria, I thought, that's what I have. That's why I hate my body so much. And that ideology, starting to believe that manhood and womanhood were feelings rather than biological reality, that caused me to suffer for the next 15 years because I believed the lies. I believed that if I had gender dysphoria and I didn't transition, that I was likely to commit suicide. And given that I already suffered from a severe eating disorder, depression, and other mental health issues, I really thought I was hopeless if I continued as a woman. But I was also a professional singer, semi-professional singer, and so it took me a long time to decide to transition because if my livelihood was also in jeopardy, and just my art and my love for singing. So I did end up starting the testosterone, and within months I suffered severe side effects. Oh, and before I continue with my story, sorry, I'm kind of winging it today, but so today it's very different. So when I was 13, this was in the mid 2000s, right? And back then, yes, there were some fringe online communities with this radical ideology, but it was not mainstream like it is today. Today it is being taught in schools. It's being promoted by politicians. Kids are not only taught that it's natural to reject your biological sex and seek surgery, but that it's fine for men in fetish gear to perform in front of children. And when I went to testify in front of Senator Weiner about my story, he told me it's not happening. So what I told Senator Weiner on that day was that I called Planned Parenthood, and I thought there would be some kind of evaluation process to go through to get my testosterone, start my transition. Instead, I was prescribed within 30 minutes. This was during COVID. I was prescribed over the phone, and I was able to pick up my prescription the same day. They obviously did not look into my medical history. They did not see any of my comorbid mental health conditions, or if they did, they didn't care. So when I told Senator Weiner this, he told me this wasn't happening, gaslit me, as well as the other detransitioners who can corroborate my story. So this is the kind of culture in the United States that we're dealing with children. So I can't even imagine being 13, reading this stuff online, and then being affirmed by my teachers, doctors, the president of the United States. But even so, I did continue on to medically transition as an adult. And within months, I started suffering from severe health side effects, but it was really losing my singing voice. That was, for me, that was the key to just having a kernel of doubt growing in my mind. I also watched several other trans-identified individuals in my life who were close to me start having side effects as well. They started to suffer from worsening mental health issues, worsening physical health issues. And I just started to question it. I thought, you know what, maybe I should listen to a different opinion. Finally, I was ready to do that because I had been told that anyone who went against the ideology in any way, even to say children shouldn't transition, or women shouldn't be defined as a feeling. Even anyone who questioned the ideology remotely was just described as a hateful Nazi bigot. But one day, I just, out of curiosity, I searched in YouTube, trans women aren't women. And the first video that popped up was titled exactly that, and it was an interview with Kellie-Jay Keen from Trigonometry. Kelly, that interview changed my life. It absolutely did. I want to commend you for your bravery to speak the truth. And that is what I needed to hear. I just needed to hear the truth. I just needed to hear someone that wasn't afraid of being canceled or the consequences that come with speaking the truth. Because I think the more people we can just get to hear it, they'll realize that this is a side of truth and logic. This ideology, it's not scientifically accurate. It's not logical. It cannot be sustained. And it is so very, very harmful. So I'm just so grateful to be here today. Thank you to everyone who came out. And of course, thank you, Kellie-Jay, for being here. Also, Excelonzic was another YouTuber I came across after Kellie-Jay. So I want to thank her as well. Thank you so much.
I just think it's profoundly just terrifying that just saying a woman is an adult. Very tired. But just saying that a woman is an adult human female, or let's stop mutilating kids, has become a remarkable thing to say, because it should be the other way around, right? It should be preposterous and evil to say that we should transition children, as opposed to us being the people that are seen as monsters, because we say that you shouldn't transition kids, and we say that a woman is an adult human female. And I'm so delighted that you're here, Kat, and all the women across the country that have realized that transition is a lie. is a complete and utter lie. But how just devastating is it that we that anybody thinks transitioning kids is not serious harmful abuse? How you can stand there and disagree? Sterilizing children is repulsive. Absolutely repulsive. Who on earth is anyone defending it? I just don't even understand. Sterilizing children is repulsive and abusive.
I'm really sorry, but I just can't stand here and let you say these things.
Why? It's a free country. There's a lady here saying she can't let us say these things. Okay. Why do you think sterilizing children is okay?
I think what you're doing is wrong.
Okay, why do you think sterilizing children is okay?
I don't think that people do sterilize children.
So you think they still have fertility after puberty blockers?
I think that what you're doing is wrong.
Do you think they have their fertility after puberty blockers?
How much experience
Do you think, answer the question, do you think, do they think they have, no, that's why you're indefensible. You think sterilizing children is okay. Puberty blockers sterilize children. Puberty blockers sterilize children.
Puberty blockers sterilize.
Puberty blockers sterilize children.
Hormones damage their body.
Sterilizing children, giving children puberty blockers sterilizes children. Okay, it's more negative to sterilize children and mutilate their healthy bodies.
You're lying to harm people.
Let her say her.
No, let her say
Come on.
it. This is free speech. Go ahead. Grab the microphone.
I
Say
think
your
what you're
piece.
doing is creating a false dichotomy, and kids need to be protected.
Protected from doctors who wanted to cut off their breasts? Or do kids just need protected from knowing that you can't change sex?
I think what you're doing is wrong. I think
Why is it
Do you
wrong?
think,
Let her
do you
speak.
think,
Let her speak.
do you think children can change sex?
I think children can change how they are, and I think.
Do you think that somebody can have a vagina created by a doctor that works?
I do actually.
You do? Jesus Christ almighty. You genuinely think a vagina can be created? It self-lubricates, that doesn't rot inside, that doesn't have necrosis. You think, and you think that that somebody born assigned male at birth can change into a woman and have babies?
You just haven't read about it. You just haven't read enough.
I'm not gonna be able to be so kind. That's ridiculous. There's a lady here telling us we're wrong who genuinely thinks that somebody born male
Just take it. It's not
can
gonna
be
hurt you.
converted into a woman with a working vagina and have
You
babies.
don't want to learn the truth because
Okay, so can we continue to speak now?
I think that you are creating a negative.
I think it's really hateful to lie to children and vulnerable people like yourself and say that it's possible to change sex. It isn't.
I think what you're doing.
Nothing. You can't. Okay. Could I, right, give you an extra arm, and you think that would work perfectly the same as your other arm?
There are many forms of gender, and there are many ways of sexuality.
Okay. Well, the way I identify doesn't mean I have to take hormones for life or have my body parts removed. So if gender and biological sex are different, then, well, I don't believe in gender. I think it's a load of nonsense, to be fair, but you do. So I'm just wondering, do you think for the feelings in your head, which would be gender, do you think you should alter your body to suit that? Or do you think maybe, just maybe, it would be advisable to change the way you feel about your body so that you could live in it happily?
You change the color of your hair.
Yeah, that's just the same as having a new vagina, changing the color of my hair.
It changes how you feel about yourself and how you present.
Yeah, but it's not going to cause necrosis. It's not going to make me infertile by having blonde hair.
Well, it could cause cancer. I mean, all choices have downsides.
Oh my God.
There are young women in this country that have tried to have phalloplasty that urinate from their anus.
There are all sorts of
There are
situations,
all sorts
but there's all sorts
Okay,
of,
right. Thank you very much for joining in the dialogue. but you've said your piece. You've admitted that you think that people can be born male and have babies. So I think it's a judgment. It's a judgment to say that someone can have a baby. Okay. Okay. It's not it's a biological impossibility to be born male and give birth. Anyway, right. Would anybody else like to come and talk? Because this is just
It won't hurt you, I promise.
crazy.
Women can get raped in prison by trans women. Okay. I think that will just be. Yes, not the way.
Could you step back next? We're blocking the pavement and we'll get told to move. So if you either stand that way or that way.
As a mental health professional,
Oh, she's going to stand here and
I'm a
invade our
mental
space.
health professional, one of the few that are speaking out.
As a woman.
I'm going to eat the microphone. They told me to put it like this. So I'm a mental health professional, one of the few that are speaking out. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people that agree with me and agree with all of us that have been silenced. And one of the main reasons is because of that asshole back there. I also didn't say that. I don't usually do that. But I just want to say that we're not alone, and I'm speaking to the parents. Please don't trust the expert blindly. Please don't believe their lies that your child is going to kill themselves if you don't affirm their child. That is a flat out lie. And my profession, I'm a social worker, we're being taught that. Our profession is captured. So we have to think for ourselves. You have to know your child. You have to recognize them as a whole person. That is what my profession has done throughout the entire history. We treat people as whole people, as individuals. We recognize there's a lot of things going on with each individual child. They could have autistic features. They could be afraid of their own gay identity. There could be so many reasons. And we need to look at those things and not instantly affirm a child. We don't instantly affirm anything else. So please, I just beg everybody to recognize that we're being lied to every single day. Every time we see a sign that says protect trans children, every time we see a sign that says that someone's going to kill themselves if we don't affirm, lies, 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 lies. That man lies, and he does not care about your children. There are other therapists that agree with me, but they're captured. Actually, he did us a favor because I didn't comply with his vaccine mandate. So now I'm here and I can speak out. So he helped. There's going to be more like me, and the more parents that stand up, the more people that stand up, the people that can do that, that's not going to lose their livelihood, especially, please stop being scared and speak out. Join us. Yes. Yes.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Okay. Who else would like to speak? Yes. It's a great t-shirt. It's not one of mine, but it is great.
So a few years ago, probably close to 10 years ago, I received a phone call from my sister, who's 3 years younger than me. I'm 32. And she told me I'm trans. And I told her, you do you. Because at that time, I had no idea what was going on. I was in graduate school a few years later, and my friend said, did you know that in women's shelters, men can go in if they believe they're women? And I said, no, that's bullshit. There's no way. And then I looked into it. And then I jokingly texted my sister who had transitioned, I think that might be her. Because I don't believe that trans women should be in women's shelters. You know, they've been raped. Like, that doesn't make sense. And I got the rehearsed answer from her. Trans women are women. They deserve to be in that space. From that point, I knew that things were going to be different. And I got into, I started researching. I discovered Kellie-Jay, discovered Megan Murphy, WLRN, and I found my people, I guess, and I understood what was really happening to my sister. My sister grew up as a tomboy, always had short hair, always got made fun of, got told, well, if you don't want to be mistaken for a boy, then dress differently, instead of being told, you do you, like I told her. But I did at the wrong time. And now she's been on testosterone for years. She got her breasts removed a couple years ago. That day I cried, but I told her, good job, because I'm afraid. Because if I am honest, I will lose her. I will lose my only sister. And everyone in my family bites their tongue, and she can be honest. She can be her quote unquote authentic self. But if we say anything, we're done. And now she's 29 years old and she's living with a 42-year-old AGP across the goddamn country. Now, if she were identifying as, if she were herself, right? She were a woman and she was with a man who was 13 years older than her, we'd be like, oh, what the fuck? But because they're both trans, it's progressive. It's cute. Don't say a word.
Can we make sure we leave a pathway?
So I normally don't talk about this. I've been volunteering with WLRN for about 2 years and I've never told my story. I just do my interviews, I do my thing because I'm scared. But I don't want people to be afraid. So that's why I'm here. And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, it's awful. I mean, look, I come here as somebody who's just saying no to this and hopefully inspiring more, oh, so immodest. Hopefully enabling other people to be able to also say no. But lurking behind all this are the broken bodies of the people we love, if not ourselves, and people being gaslit. And like, this is a big drama thing, like Scott Wiener's grooming pumpkins. That's one thing that we can all sort of point at and say, gosh, isn't that terrible? But really, we had a caller in LA who's serving a long sentence, a very long sentence in a prison, where she is now sharing a cell with a man that's inside for raping women. We have probably 20 miles from here, we have somebody happily, gleefully slicing off the breasts of a teenage girl who says she's a boy, who probably won't even say she's a boy in about 5 years' time, when she realizes that she's just been gaslit and coerced into thinking breasts are somehow so significant that she had to hide them, bind them, cut them off. I mean, there is a war on women, and it's no more illustrated by the war on our bodies and our breasts. It's so weird. In the same state as they will slice off breasts, they will condemn you for breastfeeding in public.
Yes.
They will criticize and chastise women, maybe politicians who show a little bit of cleavage. And at the same time, they will celebrate men with fake breasts. I mean, we are in the UK now. We have a man seriously trying to be a politician who wears fake breasts. I mean, it's like something from a 1980s bad comedy. It's so weird. I feel like running against him and wearing a pair of fake breasts myself. And every week when I talk to him, making them a little bit bigger until they're absolutely like comically enormous. I think that's it. That's the only way we can do it. We have to send this up and make it as ludicrous as it really is. There's a man called Wiener. And that man called Wiener with a droopy sign, with a droopy Wiener sign, just there, he is promoting adult sexualized acts, drag queens, to children. And there are loads of parents who are bona fide idiots bringing their children to come and carve pumpkins with a man wearing woman face dressed as a witch. It's absolutely staggering. What's my problem with men?
Talk to me. What's wrong with that?
Dressing up as a woman.
Dressing up as anything they want.
Dressing up as a woman. This is dressing up as a woman.
A man dressing as a woman and
Yeah,
carving
a
a
man dressing as
pumpkin.
a woman is
There's
a
nothing wrong with that.
sexualized parody.
Yeah,
of
there
women.
is.
There's nothing wrong with
It's
that.
Yeah, there
Are you a
is.
woman?
What is that? What's your problem? What's your?
Are you a
That has
woman?
nothing to do with it. That's irrelevant.
What is a woman? What's it dressed up
Well,
as?
that's irrelevant.
That
Your
is
problem is with people
absolutely
dressing up
relevant.
differently than their assigned sex. There's nothing wrong with it. Dress how you want. Don't judge other people.
I'm
Dress how you
judging
want,
them.
and let other people dress as they want.
Stay away. Yeah.
Do you think blackface is okay?
It's whatever
If
they
white
want.
people dress
Stay
as black
out of
people,
our
is that okay?
He's a virtue signaling
Let
gay
people
man.
do what they want.
Okay, fine. If a white person dressing up as a black person,
I don't
okay.
dress as a black person.
No,
Let
is it
people do what they
okay?
want.
But
Is it
you just
okay?
let them do what they want, and you would be okay with that.
Don't try to tell me what I'm okay with.
Oh, you're making it very clear what you're okay with.
It's obvious
You're a
you're a
virtue
caricature.
signaling gay man.
Yeah, yeah, there is. It's a sexualized, it's adult act. If you want to go and watch
Do what
drag,
they want if they are hurting me and
Go
children.
away,
Women
go
say
away.
no. Women say no.
honestly, men, I tell you what, men generally speaking don't quite get it. Especially gay men who don't particularly like women very much anyway, so they think it's all right to dress as a mockery of women. And you've got in 1984, George Orwell correctly identifies as young women, like those behind, as young women being the most likely to inform and to promote the ideology. That's what these young women do. It's because they're young. Once they get a bit older and grow up and realize that being beautiful ain't gonna last, they change their priorities and they all become TERFs.
Okay, next. Come on, Jeremy. Yes.
Nobody's heard of this woman.
I'm going to take you down memory lane a little bit, although you're not the ones that have the memories. I do. This park is something that in 1985 I used to come to with a group of dykes, a group of women, a group of lesbians. We used to hang out in this park. We also hung out in Dolores Park, which is another section of the city here. Are there any San Francisco lesbians around my age? I'm in my late 60s at this point. I have been fighting this trans culture over 40 years. That doesn't give me some kind of credibility, then I beg of you to start doing the deep dive, because this is ground zero. They came after lesbians first. When I say they, this is a decades-long campaign. For anybody that says, I don't know why this is going on, you should know by now. If you've never heard of Jennifer Billick, the 11th Hour blog, her motto is, it's capitalism, stupid. That is exactly what's happening. UCSF, which is very close to here, that's who started cutting off the breasts of my brethren. I watched my lesbian community start going down the toilet when I was in San Diego in the 70s, and Olivia Records hired a man to be their recording engineer. After they promised the entire community and only put out 2 albums, they were supposed to be helping women understand the recording industry. They were only going to hire women to teach them the recording engineering skills, marketing, everything. They had 2 albums. The 3rd album came out, and somebody named Sandy Stone, who lives in Santa Cruz. He's one of the oldest in the area. Sandy Stone is one of those that helped to change the entire atmosphere here in the Greater Bay Area. So did a man named Susan Stryker. No, not related to the Stryker medical industry that I know of. But when people say, I don't know why this is going on, this has been a trickery of a Trojan horse coming into San Francisco, where they could test out a very vulnerable, a very self-hating population that was trying really hard. When people don't understand, my growing up, I came out when I was 16 years old in 1971. I was still in high school. Being homosexual was illegal. It was a mental illness still. And when Ms. Magazine came out, it was like, cool. Maybe those feminists, I don't know if I'm one of them, but maybe they're going to kind of help the lesbians. Oh, no. Gloria Steinem, Bella Abzug, and Betty Friedan all held a meeting in the East Coast. They always kept out lesbians. They did not platform lesbians. Not a whole lot different than what we actually see going on in this country now. There's massive division in our women's movement here, but I digress. The fact is, San Francisco was ground zero, and I'm talking as early as the 70s. The entire West Coast started to get influenced by the music, the culture, and everything that we had. You can imagine a bunch of lesbians, like obvious lesbians, taking over like a park like this, hanging out, having a good time, no big deal. We got the whole AIDS thing comes along. What did a lot of lesbians do? Helped out the gay men, right? A lot of nurses, all that. Horrible. We thought it was horrible. Take care of that. Take care of the men. I know many lesbian relationships that broke up because one in a couple would all of a sudden give up her job, gave up everything to do that kind of care for another man. And their personal lives started to fall apart. We went through that. We saw that happening. But again, there's pattern. You have women that start to center men. And we've done it with straight men. We've done it with gay men. We've done it with sons and whatever, our brothers. After that happened, and then we got marriage equality, everybody was feeling pretty good. Oh, this is cool. Okay, so we got more support now. We've got laws in place. Everything's fine. But as any marginalized group needs is unity. We need to figure out, how do we come around something together? How do we really act like social justice warriors that lesbians used to be, lesbian feminists used to be? So we end up with the T comes to town. All of a sudden, the LGBT starts, LGBT, this is the language. It's like somebody brought up earlier, like pronouns are like Rufinol. So was the LGBT. And there were literally a handful of us that started questioning this and saying, why is it at the San Francisco Frameline Film Festival every year, why are we seeing so many more films where the characters are confused about not their sexual identity, but their bodies? This started happening in the late 80s. Move on into the 90s. Clubs are starting to close down and all that. I'm one of many. And I haven't been able to talk to one woman. So anybody that would even see this, please contact me later. I was hustled like my other butch lesbian friends outside of these lesbian pop-up bars in Oakland, which is just 10 miles across the bay, with street grade testosterone in pill form. And I was never into drugs. I didn't drink. I had friends that were doing lots of drugs. This metrosexual guy came along. I've told this story a few times. I'm going to keep telling people, because what happened and what clicked in my head after this thing happened, when more masculine lesbians are being hustled outside of a bar with a young guy, good looking, little skinny tie, saying, I got what you need. I got what you want. And started to hand this little vial over to a friend of mine who would take any drugs. And she started to open the thing, and I smacked it out of her hands. And she was like, damn, you know. And she took them, just popped them in her mouth. And I told the guy to get the hell out of town. Literally, like, get the hell out of town. He started walking away. And I said, what is it anyway? And he's like, testosterone. This is in the 90s. This is the pattern. Always look for patterns. We go back. What happened to the Black community, inner city, in every major city in our country with crack cocaine? At first it was free, and it was $5, and it was whatever. And what did we see? Devastation. Here, right here in San Francisco. Over in Oakland, I really saw it. You get big pharma behind anything, they look for target populations that are vulnerable. This did not happen overnight. They did not start teaching kids overnight that there are 100 genders. You didn't have the gingerbread person overnight. This stuff started with a lot of lesbians who started to have their breasts lopped off for $8,000 a pop at UCSF and started taking the street grade, unregulated testosterone, losing their hair. I was like 27 years old, and there were like people that I knew They couldn't wait to have facial hair. They couldn't wait to be called Mike, Bob, or whatever. This became a social contagion. And there is a particular person who I don't want to name because I hate giving her any credit, who came in around 1996, 95, 96, and started prancing her muscles and her leather. And she was flanked with gay guys all around her. And she was into gay porn. She used to be a lesbian, a bisexual, good-looking woman. And now she's tranpa. We talk about grooming. And when we talk about what's going on with us as a community of either you want to call yourself gender critical or that you're pro-reality, that's what I prefer to use. I think it involves men as well. And I've been working with parents for over 2 years now. We have to look at, if you think that there's such a thing as a trans child, that means you believe there's some other kind of thing going on chemically with human beings. And don't even buy into the intersex stuff. That's a red herring. You're male or female. There's boys, there's girls, there's men, there's women. That's it. We're gay, we're lesbian, we're bisexual. That's kind of it. What else do you do, and do your stuff behind closed doors or with good friends? None of my business as long as it's legal. And now what's legal, we have to question. Because this is legal. This, Mr. Wiener, why, Mr. Wiener? Why is SB 107 now made us a trans sanctuary, which is going to cripple? It's going to cripple the foster care system. It's going to break down more families. It's going to make more parents lose their children as they go to jail because they refuse to start calling their child some other something, but the kids don't even know what they're being called. This stuff is pornography, and a lot of parents don't want to figure it out, and they don't want to think about it. Their kids got addicted to pornography. The work of the Gender Mapping Project is probably one of the most significant things. If you haven't heard of it, follow gendermapper.org. The 11th hour blog, Jennifer Billick has been writing and studying and researching about this stuff since 2013. This is money. Everything is money. And I am one of those dinosaurs that's been in this Greater Bay Area fighting this for over 40 years. And I thought I was a man. Take that. I was a lesbian separatist for 13 years. Still thought I was a guy. This is the way that social contagions can work. Take people, twist stuff in your head. This is ground zero. Again, San Francisco, and it went to LA.
I mean, we're giving her the space to raise the that's what I'm doing.
Men wearing blue face.
Gabby called me yesterday and said
Grotesque parodies of women. Right here. Yeah, don't mind. He wouldn't answer the question. I just want to make sure you're okay. In the belly of the beast. Well, she just said, "Oh, we've hired this park," and I said, "It's a public park, isn't it?"
Why, Mr. Wiener? Why do you want to lower the age of consent?
Can we get him?
Come by and said they like
You
the
want to say
size
the
of
word
shirts.
out with me?
P-E-D-O.
P-E-D-O. P-E-D-O. This is a men's rights movement. So own it, do your research, dig deep, but this is not an accident. And get your kids and find out what they're being taught in the schools.
Thank you.
There's a film coming out. I've got some info on it. It's all about the medical harms, and it's called Affirmation Generation: The Lies of Transgender Medicine. It's going to be free to everybody, just as what Kelly has said about her film. It's coming out before Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the brave women.
Thank you, Joey. Well, I just went and asked the man himself why he sterilizes kids and promotes that. He declined to answer. And then this really angry assistant, like, why are you such a bad person? I was like, there's literally male rapists in women's prisons, and I'm the bad person. He's like, yeah, are you a doctor? I thought, he hasn't seen the clip. He hasn't seen the clip, has he? So I said, no, I'm not a doctor. Are you a doctor? He goes, yeah, but we trust doctors. I said, do you think giving a kid puberty, I've recorded it, do you think giving a kid puberty blockers doesn't sterilize? It's like, you're just such a bad person. But I didn't realize quite how tall. I imagined that, what's his name? Mina Wiener. I imagined him to be quite a small man. But he's actually a really looming presence. And look, I don't want to say you can tell, but I wouldn't let him babysit. I'm just going to say that. I think he looks, I think his policies suit the feel of the man. There is something deeply, it's tangible, people. Just go and ask him a question. He doesn't answer. He doesn't answer. He didn't answer a single question. He's too afraid because Christ knows who's got him in his pocket, but there is something really wrong with his continual promotion of sterilizing children and the incarcerated rape of women where they can't escape. And I don't even think, maybe that's the worst of all he does, but I think he's just pretty bad all round. But anyway, I will put that up on YouTube, by the way, me asking him some questions. The shame of it is you can't see the scale of just how little I am and how massive he is, because it probably is quite comical. It's like me talking to Lurch. He is so big. Anyway, who else would like to talk?
You might have to say who you are. You might not know who you are.
Why not? Hi, my name is Sierra. I also go by Excelantic. Thank you. So, first thing I want to say is that drag queens are sex clowns. They are sex clowns. We have regular clowns. Regular clowns are the kind of clowns that are appropriate for children. There's no reason to have sex clowns for children unless you are trying to groom them. And that is exactly what they are trying to do. My next thought to talk about these doctors and how we trust doctors. If you're a woman and you have not learned that you can't trust every doctor yet, you are in for a bad time. You need to watch out. These doctors are sex lobotomists. If you would blindly trust a lobotomist, you're a fool and you're going to end up without a frontal lobe. So I've been talking a lot this week on my blog, which is on Substack, excelantic.substack.com. I also have YouTube, etc., or just excelantic.com points to an archive of my past videos about the cancer risk. The Netherlands, back in 2019, they've known about this for a while. They did a nationwide cohort, looked at 2,200 trans women who were put on estrogen, and they found that it increased their rate of breast cancer by 46 times. That's not 426 times, 46 times. So that is an enormous, that's not a subtle effect at all. The same study found that there was a reduction in breast cancer for trans men on testosterone, but that's not because testosterone's safe. That's because they're cutting the breasts off. So obviously they're not going to get as much cancer. They know what these drugs are doing. They know that it causes cancer. That's why they're so eager to do the gender-affirming hysterectomy. That's why they're so eager to cut off pieces of children, is they know that they're going to get cancer real quick, because testosterone is a known carcinogen. I've been talking to some of these kids who are on social media, bragging about their sex lobotomy, bragging about the controlled substance that they're taking to regulate their emotions as minors. And a lot of them genuinely believe that our similarity to rats is a coincidence, that we don't have a common ancestor with rats, and therefore we can't generalize rat studies. We're just doing research on rats for no reason, apparently. We can't draw any conclusions. Both of our bodies use testosterone because God created kinds, like the Bible said. Like, they're not being informed of the risk. They're flashing their informed consent paperwork. There's a big dust up with a detransitioner named, or not even a detransitioner. She hasn't said that she's detransing, but she talked about the side effects on social media and expressed regret, and Trans Talk just attacked. And so in response, a lot of them were flashing their informed consent paperwork to see, it warned me about the baldness. Look, it warns you about all of the risks, and holding it up for the camera. I have yet to see an informed consent packet that warns of cancer. I have yet to see one. I keep asking them for them. They say, oh, yeah, well, he told me verbally. What? So the baldness was important enough to write down on the form for you to read, but the cancer, it's probably not a big deal. Do you know how expensive it is to treat cancer? I don't know if you guys know. It is incredibly profitable, no matter what the outcome is. So I had a friend that passed away recently from cancer. Her treatment was over $500,000 in just 2 months, and it would have lasted longer if she had lasted longer, but she didn't. And they don't understand. They can't possibly imagine how awful it is to have cancer, to undergo cancer treatment, especially when you know from the start that you're doomed. And it's just about prolonging your life slightly. It's obscene what's being done to children in this day and age. It's obscene how they're targeting gay and lesbian children, especially.
Yes.
They're telling girls who feel confused, and I'm a lesbian, so I went through this. When you realize that you are attracted to girls, and all the videos that you have seen growing up show men loving women, it's natural to picture yourself liking them as a man. It's just natural. There's a reason that I got into the trans ideology, because I'm also a detransitioner, and then got out. We need to tell young gay and lesbian kids the truth about what they're in for. We need to stop trying to tell them that they can be the other sex, because they can't. And we need to stop catering to homophobes who do not want to have to imagine same-sex intimacy. They want to have a world where anybody who looks gay might still be heterosexual, but just one of them's trans. Or they want to live in a world where all the actual gays and lesbians, one of them has trans so that they look heterosexual. They don't want to live in a world where they have to think about that, because it grosses them out fundamentally. So thank you guys all for coming out here today. I really, really am glad to see everybody's faces, because it's so important that we stand up against this. These children over here are at risk of horrible, horrible outcomes. They're at risk of being poisoned by the pharmaceutical industry intentionally, who are taking advantage of their normal teenage angst, and also taking advantage of people who have been groomed. One of my recent videos looked at a pediatric endocrinologist named Tandy Ai, who in 2019 said that we need to lower the age of sex lobotomy below 18, openly advocating it, so the AAP can't pretend that we just made it up, and saying that we should do that based on how long they've been affirmed in their gender. And her hypothetical involved a woman who knew that her newborn was trans. So it is an unholy alliance of the pharmaceutical industry and Munchausen's by proxy parents. There's one of the Boston Children's Hospital sex lobotomists. There's also a video of her saying that it's possible to tell the children are transgender in the womb. What? Yeah. I'm going to make a video on that one in the very near future. I've already made a video on that doctor specifically in my Boston Children's Health series. You want to see how eager they are to make a lot of money. It's truly, truly reprehensible. But the thing is, puberty doesn't just happen in adolescence. That is the third puberty. There are two other periods of what's called hypothalamus, pituitary, gonadal activation, which is a chain of events that puberty blockers is stifling. And that chain of events happens once in the womb, and then it happens again in infancy. And so I predict that we're going to start seeing them prescribing puberty blockers to infants. That's clearly where they want to go. That's clearly the next step. The horror of it overwhelms me. So, all right, if anybody else want to speak?
Thank you,
Thank y'all.
My name's Elizabeth. I'm a family nurse practitioner. My voice isn't usually this high. I'm just nervous. I am a nurse practitioner. I'm 60 years old. But when I was 3, I was Tarzan. And when I was 4, I was Batman. And I was always wanting pocket pants. I played army. I climbed trees. Anytime I got a Barbie, I'd give it to my sister. I hated that stuff. When I was 16, I had my first piss. And I felt things in my body that I didn't know I had or could have in places. And I wonder, these poor kids that are having body parts removed and put on puberty blockers at 11, 12, 13, 14, they don't know what they're giving up. When I was 17, my boyfriend said, hey, if you were a little older, I'd ask you to marry me. And I was shocked because I'm like, I never ever thought about getting married or having kids. Last thing I would ever think about. But I did get married when I was 26. I had 4 kids. And I came out as a lesbian in my 40s.
Welcome.
Because there's so much homophobia in this culture, in this country, and it still exists. And so I'm just saying, here's what a 60-year-old lesbian looks like. I'm glad that I was allowed to be different, and I wasn't told that I was in the wrong body. That's all I want to say.
Hey, everybody. I'm a 27-year San Franciscan. I'm a mother. I'm a lesbian, if you couldn't tell. I've got a disguise on today, but still. My message is a verbal meme, and I'm sure Kellie-Jay would do this more funny than I can do it. But you've probably seen it. It's the one where there's a woman, aka a witch, being burned at the stake. And the guy lighting the fire says, I'm on your side. Okay? So anybody that's watching this or hasn't been peaked yet, you don't have to be a parent or a lesbian or a Democrat or a San Franciscan to understand what's going on here. All you got to do is open your eyes, use your brain. It's not that hard. You're not saving kids by mangling their bodies. Absolutely. I had a kid on the cusp of 40 years old. Okay? I didn't know I wanted kids until I was in my mid-30s. They say you might mature your brain at 24, 25, but I was a late bloomer there. So these kids that are having their body parts taken off, they have no idea what they're going to miss. And they're going to miss it eventually. Their brain's going to hopefully mature eventually. But just know these puberty blockers are stopping everything, not just gonad development, their brains. Puberty happens at a specific time for a really good reason, because it helps you become an adult. It helps you make decisions. Okay? Adolescents don't know anything. Their brains are exploding nonstop. That's just how it is. It's part of being a human. Don't stop puberty. Don't cut parts off. You're not saving your kids. You're hurting them. That's my story. Thank you.
To any parents picking out pumpkins, wondering why we're here, we just want you to know it's okay to understand that your child cannot change sex. And it's really bad if you tell your child that they can change sex, or that their boys in their class are really girls, or girls in their class are really boys. We know that you've been under a lot of pressure and you've been infantilized over the last 20 years in order not to understand what your parental responsibility, duty, and instinct is. And let me just remind parents that you're right that the state is wrong, that it's wrong to tell children that they can change sex because there is no pot of gender at the end of a rainbow, which means your little boy can really become a fully grown woman. So, old Scott Penis is with his equally as massive drag queens. I mean, the only reason he doesn't look quite so tall is the drag queens are absolutely enormous there today. But I think it's vital that all parents... That lady from Affordable Homes thinks we should be quiet. Homes are for everyone, including TERFs. So let me just tell you, trans women are men. Women don't have penises. There is no such thing as non-binary. It's simply personality. Trans men are women. There is no such thing as changing sex or being born in the wrong body. If you promote that to children, you are an abuser. Who's next? Let me just double check. We said vaginas first. Yes. Can I just check you? No.
You can turn that back around. I've got a message for Scott. Yes.
Hi, my name is Julie Mink, and I would like to add my voice to the list of Democrats who will be voting red this season. Because we do not support these policies that are harming children, and it's going to be shocking come midterm elections. Shocking. I have a question for all of you. How many of you have the same exact feelings you had when you were an adolescent? Anybody? Anybody feel exactly the same they did? Did you like have anything that you thought was going to be, lifelong decisions that you could make as a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old? Anybody? No. So this feeling that these children have that they are in the wrong body is a feeling, and it will change. And heaven forbid somebody takes their child to a doctor for irreversible damage, and then that child decides that feeling is no longer there when they grow up. That is so horrific to even imagine. And I just beg you all to reconsider your decisions. And I'm going to give this mic to you. Yay! I'm just watching, he's making announcements. I'm sorry, it's women first. Are you a woman?
She knows I'm not a woman.
Thank you for also knowing you're not a woman. Thank you.
Kellie-Jay? Okay, this lady, and then that lady.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Nervous. The reason I'm here is to let people understand that so I'm a Democrat. I've been a Democrat my whole life. I've only been a Democrat. I come from a Democratic, very hippie family. And I'm so disappointed and grossed out by what is being done to women and children. Women are second-class citizens in this country now, and it's only getting worse. But something that I want people to think about, or I want to talk about how they have made it, they've just under the radar made it acceptable. So think about TLC, everybody knows the Learning Channel. And then we have a show called I Am Jazz. This is a 9-year-old boy who was put on puberty blockers at age 9. And it was all televised that this boy was going to be turned into a girl. At age 15, this was televised. You can look it up. But at age 15, Jazz was meeting with his surgeons and his parents, and they said, well, since your puberty blocker stunted your growth, your penile growth, scrotal growth. We need to give you possibly skin stretchers to make your neo-vagina. I guess maybe he didn't need that, but come 16, he gets his neo-vagina surgery. He needed 3 corrective surgeries. He was in a lot of pain. He is now emotionally and mentally stunted. He cannot bond with somebody. He is unable to date and connect with somebody on a romantic level. His surgeon has already confirmed and admitted that these kids are inorgasmic. They cannot enjoy being an adult. And what an adult and having love and connection and family. He will never know that because he can't make babies. He can't, his testicles are gone. And I want to mention something Exel mentioned, Tandy K or Tandy I or whatever. She was making it reasonable to be able to castrate kids young because of her puberty blocker and cross-sex hormones, opposite sex hormones, had rendered him already sterile. His parts were too small. He was not producing sperm. So why not just cut them off before he's 18? He's not using them anyway. They're non-functional. And she said it's just like removing an appendix. But no, it is not. It is not loving to destroy your kid's body because they like pink and they're a boy.
Yes.
It is okay to be a boy and like pink.
Yes.
It is okay to like sparkly things. And it is okay for girls to like sports and be just badass on machinery or something, you know? I mean, tomboys, save the tomboys. Because I also, the normalization really is what gets me. The fact that we are so easily dismissed as horrible people because we don't want girls and boys to be under a scalpel for a mental issue. When I was 10 or 11, I wanted to be a boy, not wanted to be one, but I cut my hair short. I changed my name to Joshua. And I had my mom call me Joshua, and I wore like a button-down crisp shirt because that's what being a boy was to me. But then after 2 weeks, I got over it because that's what happens. Kids can't identify as dogs. They can't. We're not supposed to be attaching tails to them if they think they're a dog. And it's okay. I couldn't remember that. But also, we have Rachel Levine, who says that we must empower youth to take cross-sex hormones and puberty blockers. We only have 2 sexes. Gender is a spectrum, sure, but you're not smashing stereotypes by cutting up kids for their mental ideas or confusion. Surgery is not the answer for mental illness or confusion, just puberty and not knowing where you fit in the world and who you are. And then you have parents like the lady from Mermaids who will convert her gay son to a girl because that just can't be acceptable. Having a gay son is unacceptable to her. So she had her kids' penis and testicles removed in Malaysia or something. Thailand. This is definitely child abuse. We only have 2 sexes. It is decided by the sperm hitting the egg, whether they're going to be XX or XY. Yes, there are DSPs. Yes, there are intersex. That is not the rule. It's the exception. And we don't cut up kids and remove young women's breasts and tell them that they aren't right being who they are. And another reminder, Elliot Page. Ellen Page was told she was not the right kind of lesbian for Hollywood. She was made to feel like she wasn't good enough. And so she took off her breasts too. That is normalizing this. She said, trans kids will die if they do not get surgery on their bodies for mental illness. No, some of these kids will die after they get that because they will kill themselves. Listen to detrans people. This is not fake. We're not women who cried wolf. This is really happening. And you can look up detrans, and when you see the detrans kids and young people being terrorized by trans rights activists, their feelings, their suffering is diminished and dismissed and ignored for the lie that trans medicalization is the answer. It just drives me crazy. Rachel Levine, yeah, let them cower kids. Check his hard drive. Yes. And also, there are plenty of drag queens who say, this is not for kids. We do drugs. We do raunchy things backstage. We have men dressed as women spreading their legs for kids for money. We have little girls walking around with men in lingerie and fake breasts, giving them money. This is not normal. You're not good parents. You're not progressive. If you're exposing your kid to that. And then you can look up, Desmond is amazing. He's another great normalization example that we are accepting, that it's totally normal for little boys to be with grown men when they have Rohypnol in the painting behind them when they're interviewing this little boy. The painting says Rohypnol, and he's also, this guy, I can't remember his name, but he's a murderer, so he just had a deal. But we have just people accepting and blindly just sheep following that we are the bad people because we don't think that we should be paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for kids to get cross-sex hormones and to be cut up. And also, thanks, Wiener, for SB 132. Thank you for saying that women don't matter. Males' feelings matter more. A male's identity matters more than a woman's safety and dignity.
Thank you very much. I really like the people that have just come and stolen a pumpkin and not stayed for the show. That's been the most heartening thing that's happened behind me today. You just see like a sneaky parent just coming in and just scooping up the pumpkin. Okay, who's next? Yes. Right, I'm gonna say we've been on the live stream about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So yeah, thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Amanda, and I've lived in the Bay Area most of my life. I was a gender non-conforming child, luckily in the days of the era of the tomboy. It wasn't until I was 16 that I realized I would likely be lesbian, and I came out as soon as I got to college. I rode with the Dykes on Bikes here with the Gay March. I remember where I was when Harvey Milk was shot. I entered the Speakers Bureau and I went into high schools to answer kids' questions about what was a lesbian, what was a gay person. It meant, do gay men wear Speedos? They wanted to know. How do women make love? They wanted to know. And it breaks my heart that we are now going into the schools to tell children that they can change their sex even before they know they are gay. This gender identity thing is a religion. I know it's a religion because I have my own. My family told me that I was probably a man in my last life. My family believes in reincarnation. I know this is a belief system.
Sorry, please restroom. Excuse me.
So I know that gender identity is a belief system, but at least I have the grace not to try and convince you all that you were reincarnated into another body over and over and over. Everyone is born in another body than they expected. So to say that gender identity has any science base and to impose that on others is a violation of our freedom of religion. And it is cultural imperialism, and it is going to be exported overseas through the third gender option that my culture, Thailand, has had for centuries. We have our, what you would call ladyboys here. They never said they were women, but now, because of cultural imperialism, they're inclined to want to say so. The lesbians, we call them toms, short for tomboy, and we're going to stay women. So it's no good trying to make up for past rejection of LGB by trans affirming everybody now. Just face up to it. It's anti-reality. And that's all.
Thank you. Yes. So I was busy watching some dogs recognising the biological sex of other dogs, which is just really interesting because a dog recognises instantly, probably from smell, what a dog looks like. And I'm not a vet, but I also know what a dog is. Anyway, who else would like to speak? Women, yes. I'm so sorry, it's weird. Sorry. Well, I'm not that sorry. I'm a bit sorry.
Hi, my name is Stacy. First of all, what up, Bay Area? My parents, I grew up working class. I've always been working class. Just super normal, hella normal, right? My mom was a social worker. My dad was a unionist. I was politically active even as a child. We didn't have a choice. My first campaign I ever worked for was Ralph Nader. I was collecting signatures at BART to get him on. I couldn't even vote yet. I decided to give my life to serving my community. I work with at-risk kids. My background is human development, and I emphasize on parent education. I'm one of the founders. Empowering parents as first educators and primary educators. Yeah, that's right. And we, in my field, we constantly have the conversation nurture versus nature. Constantly, and the balance of what that means for kids. And like enhancing their experience. To embody them in their bodies. Like, where does that feel? Where do you feel that? And this whole movement is all nurture. It's all nurture. They're telling kids that they're conditioned to believe what they believe. That there's no nature involved. And it's the disembodiment from their mind and body. It's the opposite. And this is affecting at-youth risk. At-risk youth. Sorry, I'm also And I want to empower parents. Like, talk to your kid before someone else talks to them about this. Teach them that they are beautiful, but they are not special. They don't get to change their sex. Tell them that there aren't women that are more women than other women because of how feminine they are. Empower them. Teach them to say no. Teach them about their boundaries. Yeah. Empower your kids. Absolutely. Seriously, the thing about this gender ideology, which I do call it the religious left, because that's what it is. Yeah. And it's just, talk to your children before someone else does. That's my greatest advice. Teach them to be in their bodies. Teach them to love their bodies. And just help them navigate this. Absolutely. Because they need our help. And this whole movement disfranchises parents from kids. They make us adversaries. Right. You know, like, if you can't trust your parents, then everything's questionable. Right. So, and this is what I tell my kids: I love you so much. You're so beautiful, but you're not special.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go against my rule because there's a chap here who is want to shoot off, but I'd like him to speak.
Oh, thank you. I just want to thank you all for being here, and of course, in all fairness, I got to thank Senator Scott Wiener, because he's got the pizza, he's got something going. And I have for decades worked with disadvantaged youth, and I learned from everyone here and from all the children that I've worked with. And one of the adults who I worked with, I had to fill out this form, and it said, are you heterosexual? Are you bisexual? And he said, I'm trisexual. And I said, what's that? And he explained to me a lot of things that I'd never heard of. And he said, basically, if it's sexual, I'll try it. And so teenagers are developing their sense of self, their sense of identity. Many heterosexual teenagers have same-sex experiences, and many gay teenagers have opposite-sex experiences. We have family friends that have lived, handsome, intelligent men that have lived as a woman for a while and then decided to live as a man. We have extremely talented, educated family friends that have been living as a lesbian for years and ultimately decide, I'm not lesbian anymore. So people make decisions throughout their life that affect the expression of their sexuality. And I believe that, we should let that happen to a degree. I think we should empower parents, because I think parents really matter. And I really believe that you can support development, be open, to different sexual orientations, and still reduce the risk of harm. So I know a colleague who I will not name, and he's quite well known. He's one of the experts, who develops all these guidelines. And I heard him speak at UCSF. And he said that in the Swedish study, they had found that the suicide rate for completed sexual reassignment surgery was 14 times normal. And I found that troubling.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, and then you. Yes. Let me just double check. After you, is there any more? Yes, got to be you then. Any more females? Yes, so 2 more, and then you, and this chap here. Okay. Let me just lower this because this. I'm very short, right? No, that man was proper tall. There we go.
Hi, my name is Gina Hoke. I just came from Denver today. We drove, my friend and I, Yolanda.
Wow.
So we're going to be here, and we're going to do the West Coast tour. We'll be in Portland and Seattle after that.
Woo!
Wow! I felt compelled because I've been doing this since 2014. This affected everything in my life, business, personal life, my children's school. And I've heard so much that I could say, but so many of you already did it. The one thing I haven't heard, so I appreciate your patience if it's been said, but I'm going to encourage you to get your kids out of public schools. I took my kids out. I am homeschooling now. I was completely harassed. My kids were harassed by Tay Anderson, who is a school board vice president of Denver Public Schools. And that was just it for me after that. I just wish I could get you all to understand how serious it is in public schools and how your kids really have no right to even know that a child is the opposite sex. So everything's compelled. Compelled speech, compelled behavior. My son, his freshman year of high school, honors biology, was shown a video from Teen Vogue where the very intro of the video said, the sex binary is bullshit. So yeah, if you have the ability, and even if you don't, figure it out. Get your kids out of public schools. It's very serious. I don't know what else I can say. I really believe that's where they're doing most of the indoctrinating and getting your kids away from you as parents. So I could go on and on. You know, I've been doing this since 2014. I protested in Atlanta against Leah Thomas, in New York City against the UN, in Tacoma against prisons. Thank you. With so many of these amazing women who are here today, we've all become family. Even, you know, we have our little spats and everything. It doesn't matter. We're here for kids. We're here for ourselves, for women, for our girls. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Kellie-Jay. Thank you so much.
Next lady here, yes.
Brought my adopted daughter with me, and Frank. She died because of Nazi ideology, and there are a lot of children dying because of trans ideology. I do connect the two. And I also want to say that I was trans for a year after dating a guy who claimed to be bi, but he was actually gay. So I was convinced that I was a gay guy. And I got a hold of the Leatherman's Guide, published in 1969. And it, at the end, described the ultimate thrill of surgically removing a man's testicles and showing them to him. Oh. This is the Leatherman's Guide, published in 1969. So it's been on my radar. I was not trans. I decided that I would talk myself out of it. I had a therapist, of course, and became a mother happily. However, my kids were indoctrinated. They weren't indoctrinated into trans ideology because they were too young, but they were indoctrinated into other ideologies, such as their school counselor decided to come out as a lesbian and marry one of the other women's staff publicly. And this was on Cape Cod, and wanted everybody to know about it, wanted the kids to know about it. This was progress. And this was just 10 years ago. And I wasn't to know that my daughter started cutting herself. I only found out after that, because it wasn't my right, apparently, to know. So it has been on trans ideology does not come as a surprise to me, but it has to stop, and it's going to stop, and we're not going to lose.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, who is next? Who is next? Yes.
That'd be great. So we'll just move the camera.
All right, hello San Francisco. Hello everybody. Thank you, Kellie-Jay. Thank you, local organizing committee, and the other speakers who were braver than me, because you went first. All right, how many of us remember the late great Alex Dobkin? Alex Dobkin, yes? Yes? All right. Affectionately known as the Head Dyke, she was a lesbian feminist musician and activist, and she wrote some great rap music, which I have adapted for our purposes. So I want you to clap along. That's important. All right. Here we go. One. Here we go. All right. Growing up female in the USA, you got to act like TV. Okay, there's so much to make over, so much to hide. If you want to look good, like advertising design, to tell you who to be and to tell you what to do. When we say LGB and they say TQ, you gotta keep men happy with your handmade ways. Defend them, send them, sing their praise. Be careful not to make them angry, or they will attack you with violent brutality. Justice, bunch of turf today. And all the media is telling us, let in the guys. You can't meet without them. They emphasize, the radio, TV, books, magazines, same old dance, the same old routines. Rape threats, death threats, sure gets tedious. Heavy-handed gender harangue by the media, trying to convince us a woman is a man, and they go on and on about it ad nauseum. They taunt us, bully us,
one reality leaves you behind. In a trans world where drag is queen, a woman-born woman is a dangerous being. Ain't no such thing as a tomboy girl or a feminine boy in a trans world. Ain't no such thing, and I don't want to hear about it. Don't write it, don't say it, don't sing it, don't play it. They can be dysphoric. Don't write it, don't say it, don't sing it, don't play it. There's more. Well, now you come to the hardest time. TRAs will try to hand you every line. They'll rage, they'll threaten, scream, and they'll curse. Call every one of us a goddamn puss and trans haters. Right-wingers. Sex is a social construct. Educate yourself. Yeah, we did. That's why we're here. Black women on the swim team, here's what we found. Women in the prisons, here's what we found. Talking to the parents, here's what we found. And detransitioners, this is what we found. If we don't let politics keep us apart, and we don't let misogyny keep us apart, and we don't let homophobia keep us apart, or big pharma keep us apart, we're gonna win. What I'm saying is, we ain't got it easy, but we got it.
Hello. I'm James, and sorry for crashing. So I was born with a condition called hypogonadism. If you know what that is when you give a kid a puberty blocker, you cause the condition I was born in. So I have much experience in this field. Now I went to which is now a gender affirming, whatever gender is, care facility here in San Francisco. And they told me that, my mother was very much like our wonderful leader here, very outspoken. She did not want any sort of medical anything done to me. But she said that I was basically like 4 or 5 years younger than my age. And that's because when your puberty is blocked, it stops all development of mental, emotional, and sexual everything. So the child is frozen in time at 13 years old if you give him puberty blockers. So if you're talking to a 16-year-old on a puberty blocker, you're talking to a 13-year-old on a puberty blocker. So don't let them lie to you. Don't let them lie to you. That came from the very people who now say completely different things now. And now they put in a bunch of cross-sex hormones, and that's a big Pandora's box. I can tell you right now, my testicles were dormant till age 40. You can simply put some other hormones in it and stimulating hormones, and they come back to life. So they're not working there. So if they're telling you you need to remove these, they're lying to you. They're lying to you because they told me the truth in the 80s, and now they've changed their mind. And that's not medicine. That's barbary. Okay? Yes. Thank you. Sorry.
All right. Hello, everybody.
You stay right there. Otherwise, you're too much in the slowing.
Okay, so I'm speaking today. I wrote a little something down on my phone. I'm speaking today to ask a favor of the members of my community. Now, I would name the LGBT community, although I'm not sure we have that anymore, as I would like to think that a community does not involve the vicious defamation, silencing, and rejection of those in it who dare speak the truth. The favor I ask is that we stop being afraid of holding a dissenting opinion in the face of this new virus that is the new homophobia. Are you a boy or a girl? I was asked this question frequently during my childhood. By middle school, it was use the other locker room being shouted at me by the other boys as I changed into my PE clothes. Come high school, it was the 6-letter F word. Now in college, it's what are your pronouns? I had the typical trans childhood that was reflected in shows like I Am Jazz and various other entities across the internet. I grew up as the only boy in a household with 2 lesbian mothers, loved them to death, and an older sister, and exclusively female friends. I've always admired women. But by age 14, after already 4 years in therapy and on antidepressants, I finally asked one of my mothers if I could go to the doctor to seek help for my gender dysphoria. She agreed to schedule an appointment, as she knew I had been struggling with conforming and, like many parents, would have done absolutely anything to help her depressed and suicidal son. I remember the excitement and nervousness I felt as the appointment date approached. As we got closer to the date, my mom asked me if I was sure I wanted to go to the doctor for this. She tried her best to explain to my naive and malleable teenage brain that seeking this care was something I should not feel any uncertainty about. While in today's world, this questioning from my mother would be seen as deeply transphobic, I'm immensely grateful that I had a trusting enough relationship with her at the time such that I could be honest and tell her that I was not, in fact, certain about transition at age 14. My mother was also a gender nonconforming kid and young adult, only she was born in 1963. Upon seeing photos of her from the 80s with hair shorter than mine and men's clothes, I felt certain that if she was born in my generation, she too may have walked into the same trap that I did. Sorry.
We're here for you.
I'm disappointed because aside from that baby earlier today, I might be the youngest person here, and no offense to anyone here. But I'm just disappointed in my generation because I go to UC Santa Cruz. I drove from there today. And if I spoke like this on my college campus, I almost feel I couldn't. Many people my age right now were afraid to speak out because the truth is being weaponized against us. And it's not okay. I'm grateful for my mother. I feel if I had any other parents, I could be standing, here not fully intact. And so listen to the older generation sometimes. Sometimes they do have things to say. It's not all antiquated and oppressive because the new ideas are oppressive in ways that we're blind to, or many of us are blind to. So, I saw that sign, stop, don't trans the gay away. Because we're here, we're not going anywhere, and you can't erase us, and you can't, practice your eugenics disguised as diversity, equity, and inclusion. So,
I'm just going to make the camera low again. Wow. Yes, it's like a coincidence. All these guys are really tall. Okay. Does anybody else want to speak? Anybody else want to speak? Would you like to do some of your speech again? Sure. Right, we're going to have a speech that we've already had right at the beginning because my tech went all weird and I had to switch to YouTube for my streaming thing. So do bear with.
Hello again, for those of you who were here earlier. So thank you for your patience for listening again. In honor of Kellie-Jay's upcoming visit with Kamala Harris in Seattle, I'll introduce myself in the style of our first female vice president. My name is Allie Snyder. I am a woman. I am a mother. I have no pronouns because I refuse to tell other people how to speak about me. I am wearing some of the finest fashion ever created to protect the rights of women and children. I'm here today in San Francisco, in the formerly great state of California, and I aim to turf it up. All right. I want to start my turf talk on the subject of using preferred pronouns. Seems like such a small thing at first, right? An easy way to show basic respect to a fellow human struggling with mental distress. But the reality is the term preferred pronouns is a massive misnomer. A more accurate term would be demanded pronouns, because compliance in this compelled speech is mandatory and not at all up to individual preference. When we respect someone's pronouns, the demands being made of us are incredibly serious and lead to some very dark places. To participate in this practice is to accept a new cult-like faith based on feelings, outdated stereotypes, delusions, dysphoria, and often homophobia. These demands to respect and participate in gender ideology are being leveled at our children. On the first day of school this year, my 10 and 12-year-old sons were asked by 3 separate teachers for their preferred pronouns on getting to know you questionnaires. In my subsequent meetings with their principals and teachers, I made it clear that this question is unacceptable at a public school. It is unacceptable because it forces our children to wonder if they have such a thing as a gender identity. At the very least, this question confuses them and makes them ask themselves if their bodies might be wrong. In too many instances, it leads them down a path to barbaric medical experimentation and irreversible harm. I warned these educators that by promoting this new ideology, generations of future homosexuals and other so-called gender nonconforming children are being thrown on a medical assembly line where they are being stunted, sterilized, surgically altered, and rendered medical patients for life. I hope I planted a seed of curiosity in these meetings, but unfortunately, at least in the case of my son's health teacher, my warnings seem to fall on deaf ears. This woman looked me straight in the eye and told me being a woman is a feeling. She's a true believer committed to teaching her students California's newly mandated family life curriculum, where children learn all about identities like agender, genderqueer, pangender, and so many more that are so real and valid, she couldn't even remember what they were during our meeting. Unsurprisingly, my son is no longer in this handmaidens class, but that won't save the other kids from her and her fellow gender cult leaders throughout our education system, who are hell-bent on robbing our children's innocence and warping their ability to understand reality. So as we see these demanded pronouns appear more and more often on surveys, online profiles, email signatures, and employee name badges, we must resist regardless of the consequences. I lost my job because when I shared my concerns regarding gender ideology, someone felt hurt, sad, and uncomfortable. I refused to stay silent on the subject, so I was let go. I don't blame my former employer, though. They have the livelihoods of thousands of people hinging on their compliance with California employment law. Instead, I blame the corrupt policymakers like Scott Wiener and Governor Gavin Newsom, who so smugly sign away our First Amendment right to freedom of and from religion. They sign away women's rights to single-sex spaces based on our biological sex and the future health and well-being of our children. Thanks to these policymakers, the state now says a certain type of person's feelings trump objective reality. If their feelings are hurt, offended, or even questioned by discussing the harms and human rights violations that follow from the promotion of gender ideology, the offending party must be penalized with extreme prejudice. Of course, there is no such consideration for us women who do not want to share our restroom with a volatile man who told a coworker the moment he knew he was a woman was when he, and I quote, was getting fucked in the ass by ladyboys in Korea. Regardless of how many of us were targeted by sexual predators in our past, our feelings of violation and loss of security mean nothing to this state. Instead, we women face consequences for even speaking our concerns out loud because the state now considers gender identity a protected characteristic far more important than our biological sex. In closing, I empathize with the desire to respect someone's pronouns. I used to do it too, because I always strive to be kind and respectful to my fellow human beings. But I know better now. I know using preferred pronouns is really submitting to the demands of a dangerous ideology. It is no respectful act. We must remember it is never kind to lie to children and mentally ill or affirm that their bodies are wrong and need altering. There is no kindness in demanding women and girls open the doors to our single-sex spaces for predators, convicted rapists, and pedophiles who want to gain access to the prey of their choice when we are most vulnerable. We must hold the line on our language. Our children's futures, our freedom, and indeed our very understanding of reality itself begins and ends with our language. So keep standing up, keep speaking out, and do not submit to dangerous demands.
Yes. Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
danger to children.
We know it's a danger to children.
Stop sterilizing kids, Weena.
Stop sterilizing kids. We know.
Nearly all of his policies are reducing the age of consent. This should concern every single parent in the country. Children cannot consent to being sterilized. Puberty blockers, without question, sterilize children. Puberty blockers, sterilize children. Anyway, we thought they might need to know because apparently these morons don't seem to know that puberty blockers sterilize children.
Puberty blockers sterilize
Okay, where's that lovely man that was going to talk with the nice dog?
Oh, that's his name. His name's Ted.
Ted?
Ted with the dog. And the dog's Montana.
What's the dog's name?
Montana.
Puberty blockers sterilize children. No men in women's prisons.
Come here, Ted. Ted, get over here.
Thank you so much. Grooming kids is so great. Kids is just so great. We just had such a great time.
So, Ted, tell your story.
Hi, I'm Ted Hudako. I'm a dad of 2 teenage sons. After a 19-year marriage, my wife came to me and told me that our older son was trans. And on that same day, she separated from our marriage. She took both our sons with her. The younger one came back home a few days later. She filed for divorce at the end of 2019. We got into the family court in June of 2020, had our first hearing with Judge Joni Hiramoto over in Contra Costa County. I'll cut to the chase. There was a fact about Judge Hiramoto, that I didn't learn for almost a year, and that was that Judge Hiramoto had her own adult son who was transitioning to a woman, or to a trans feminine identity, at the same time that Judge Hiramoto was adjudicating my custody case. Judge Hiramoto never disclosed this conflict of interest. I've learned, actually, I'll cut to another part of the chase is, so I lost custody just of my older son. I retained shared 50-50 custody of the younger one who does not have a gender discordant issue. So it was the custody issue was entirely based on, I believe, Judge Hiramoto's own prejudicial identification with our family dynamic with her own. I've learned since that the minors counsel that was appointed by Judge Hiramoto, Daniel Severn Harkins, and I've learned this because I've subsequently filed a complaint with the California Bar Association. The bar initially has rejected my complaint about Mr. Harkins, but curiously in the rejection letter that I received from the California Bar, they've identified Ms. Harkins, Ms. Harkins 17 times and used the she, her pronouns. So apparently, it would appear that Judge Hiramoto appointed a closeted trans feminine attorney to represent my then 16-year-old son, and then shepherded him into basically puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. I learned about this time last year. I was home on a Sunday going through my mail and had a rather thick envelope from my insurance company, health insurance company, and started going through the statements. And I noticed a $209,820.34 charge for a one-day procedure that took place August 4th, 2021. So about 2 months before or earlier that I saw this charge. I've never seen a charge like this on any medical bill, and that includes for my elderly family members who had cancer treatments. So naturally, I was curious what this was. I reached out to my ex-wife and asked, "What is this?" I'd asked 2 and 3 times, and then finally she messaged me back to tell me she was pleased that she'd had a Suprelin implant and had begun estrogen pills in my son, not her. I didn't know what this was. I was familiar with some of the other puberty blockers, Lupron, spironolactone. And I consulted with a couple of doctors who both told me that the combination of the puberty blocker and the estrogen would lead to permanent irreversible sterilization in about 4 months. It had been 2 months at the time. I reached out to my ex's attorney, and let me also just back up a little bit. When my older son was taken away from me, my wife was given all physical custody, no visitation for me, and most legal custody. But there was one important reservation in the legal custody that was in the orders, and that was there was supposed to be no gender identity related surgery before the age of 18 without the express written consent of both parents. So the Suprelin implant that I just described a moment ago, I basically began doing some research. I found the prescribing documentation for that drug, and it's in black and white. This is a surgical procedure. The prescribing information describes using a scalpel, just making an incision, using sutures to close the wound, and post-surgical care. So I pointed this out to my ex-wife's attorney and said, you know, it appears you violated the custody order. What are you going to do to rectify this? And I rather than them doing the right thing and taking that out, that began a hellish legal procedure for 4 months. They filed a trumped up domestic violence restraining order against me that I had to spend tens of thousands of dollars and months defending myself against to clear my name. In the meantime, I did file or attempted to file a emergency motion for removal of the Suprelin implant. And what happened in that case is the presiding judge did grant me a hearing, but not on an emergency basis. The judge granted the hearing 6 months later.
After the child turned how old?
Right. Well, at that point, the sterilization already would have been a done deal. And my son would be 3 weeks away from his 18th birthday. So even had we gone through with that hearing, and had I prevailed at that hearing, there wouldn't have been any point in getting the implant removed because it already would have done its damage, and no judge would actually grant an order when a child is that close to being 18. They simply would say, he's just going to get it, put it back in. My experience is unfortunately not atypical. I met a mother who happened to have a court date with the same judge the same day back in 2020, who had an analogous situation. She has 2 daughters, and she was stripped of custody of the older daughter, who has a gender discordant identity as well. Can't go into the entire history of that person, but this is happening. And what I described to you happened before SB 107. So SB 107, was introduced by Senator Wiener behind us at the beginning of this year. Several of us, including myself, went to Sacramento on multiple occasions and testified against SB 107 and told our personal stories, but we were ignored. The politicians in Sacramento are afraid of Senator Wiener. They're afraid of people who support him. But we've got to keep fighting against this. They're not going to stop. There's so much money on the table, And that's really what this is about. It's the money. There's again a $209,000 procedure for a one-day outpatient procedure.
UCSF, right?
Yeah, and that's at UCSF. I could talk more about UCSF. Do you want to know about UCSF?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when I lost custody in 2020, I wrote a letter to Dr. Stephen Rosenthal. He's an endocrinologist, and I wrote, and his co-director, Dr. Diane Ehrensaft, who's the mental health director. These are both the directors at UCSF's Child Adolescent Gender Clinic. I think it was a 5-page letter. I included a paper that Dr. Rosenthal had co-authored, and I actually asked him some questions. Well, the first thing I asked was, can you please help me get access to my son's electronic medical records, because I was entitled to have those. Curiously, they didn't respond to that letter, and they never cooperated with my getting the medical records. I obtained them much later through a different basis. But I asked Dr. Rosenthal about a paper he had written, which actually curiously referenced the brain cognition maturity paper under pubertal suppression. That's the Schneider paper originating out of Brazil. And that's the case in which an 11-year-old boy was given a course of puberty blockers, and there was a measured drop of 10 points of IQ. I told Dr. Rosenthal and Ehrensaft in my letter that I was most concerned about my son not suffering a cognitive injury. And I also asked, were any baseline metrics, IQ testing, other cognitive testing being performed? Because if you don't measure something, you're obviously not going to be able to determine if there's been a change. I never received any response to this. Dr. Rosenthal has since corresponded with me and claims that he didn't receive my letter, which I CC'd to, well, a number of politicians, the judge. It was mentioned in hearings. So they know what these puberty blockers do.
My donation was refunded to me because Eventbrite says this violates their community standards.
So if you donated on Eventbrite, apparently they also don't support not sterilizing kids. So thank you if you donated, but maybe you'll have to go straight to my platform. standingforwomen.com/documentary is where you can donate. Right, so we came here to San Francisco because SB 132 puts male rapists in women's prisons. According to Mr. Wiener's staff, that means I'm a bad person for not wanting women to be raped in prison. He also has made this a sanctuary state, which means you can come all across the country to get your child sterilized or your daughter's breast removed. I mean, it's wholesome. It's not like pumpkin carving. So he had this pumpkin carving with sexualized caricature parodies of women called drag queens. Wearing women's face. And lots of people here are quite happy to endorse a man who basically promotes the sterilization of children. And shame! And I don't even think they're bad people. I think they just believe the lie that puberty blockers are reversible. I think they believe the lie that being born in the wrong body is actually a thing. You are your body. You cannot be born in the wrong body. You are your body. We tell people all the time to love the body they're in, except we only seem to be telling people that are morbidly obese or with disabilities. They have to love their disabilities and the bodies that they're born in. But if you think you're a boy and you're a girl, or if you think you're a girl and you're actually a boy, we tell you you should change your body to fit the way you feel. So, the midterms are coming up. I don't think for a moment that this man is going to lose his seat, which he should, because I think this place is totally captured. I think adults have lost the ability to think. I think they've lost the instinctive ability to know what's right and wrong. And I think this is a mass gaslighting on an industrial, pharmaceutical scale. But what will happen eventually is the truth will out, because we've always had episodes in human history where people have done horrifying, terrible, bad things, and then everyone eventually realizes it's wrong. But when that happens here in this state, there will be the walking wounded, those that will not be able to be repaired, those that will have to suffer the consequences of being gaslit, that will wear the consequences on their broken and battered bodies, and there will be families that will be irreconcilable. Their differences will be too much to bear. There will be children that will ask their parents, why did you do this to me? Why did you allow me to take charge when you were supposed to be my parents? I was a child incapable of consent, and now I have to live with the mistakes that you made because you would not stand up for what was right. And those parents should be brought to justice, but how can they when they're infants themselves and they are at the behest of really crooked doctors, big pharma capitalists, and politicians with no guts? So, we came here to say, you cannot be born in the wrong body. A man cannot change to be a woman. No men in women's prisons. And no more telling children that they can change sex. It's a lie. It's disgusting. So anyway, if we stand together beyond our divisions, and we can put our divisions aside, whatever they might be, in order to speak the truth, I promise we will win. If we can hold truth as a fundamental value above all others, then I promise we can win. And do you know why else we're going to win?
Why?
We know why. Because I never lose. Organising committee, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Feels good, right? Just saying.
As we close out for the afternoon, I wanted to thank our ground team, all the voices and speakers today, Posey Parker for visiting and sharing her thoughts, and viewers and donors like you who support and make our efforts possible. I'm Sentinel, signing off. Have a happy and safe evening.